The immediate reaction was to try to mute my voice and to just, try to protect my own reputation. But yeah, shame will just made me shrink into someone smaller than I ought to have been. The way I would describe being cringe is when you have that moment of just having a mirror in front of you, of something maybe that does not feel good, something you're embarrassed about, something that brings shame and discomfort. And one aspect of my life is when I was vulnerable and I realized that I'd overshared. And also, I'd also kind of heard my own voice, seeing what mistakes I had made, how naive I had been in a certain situation. And I just cringed. It was cringe-worthy. Shame has been something that I experienced and felt in certain moments in my life when I had opened up my life and given my all to people, to a situation, and part of it was when I didn't get the response that I thought I deserved. So when I felt betrayed and I didn't feel the love was reciprocated, when I didn't feel that what I was giving was coming back to me. So I felt a little bit stupid. I felt naive. I felt like, why did I believe this person in the first place? And I felt really betrayed. And after that betrayal, I felt so much shame because I thought to myself, such a smart woman, you're intelligent, you can do better than that, you should have known, and just feeling the sense of failure, like why couldn't I read that person better? I really felt shameful, and it became something that felt like a wound, and I felt exposed. So the immediate reaction was to want to hide. The immediate reaction was to try to mute my voice and to just, try to protect my own reputation. But yeah, shame will just made me shrink into someone smaller than I ought to have been. So like any woman, you grow up and you aspire to meet Prince Charming and, ride into the sunset and live happily ever after. And when that doesn't work out, you feel a sense of failure. You feel a sense of shame. So I know personally there were so many moments that I felt like, why couldn't I make that relationship work? And why couldn't I make it last forever? What was wrong with me? So I started personalizing it. And that's the thing about shame. Shame starts making you give yourself a label that you're less than if you don't have that Prince Charming next to you. And it really caused me to not show up fully in some of my friendships, especially friends who had partners, because then I felt like I was the third wheel. And then also just in society, just what society expects of you, to your family. There, 1 minute you're with someone, next minute you're by yourself. So that pressure of having to have a certain image when it comes to relationships. So that shame of not having succeeded in making something last was something that left a stigma in me. But I'm grateful that through self-acceptance, self-acknowledgement, and also learning from my mistakes and how I contributed to the situation and not just blame the other party, I was able to rise above that and be able to walk tall and know that I am enough. And I will embrace the mistakes that are cringeworthy, but also know that I have the authenticity to tell my story as a woman who has overcome, will continue to overcome, and embrace her authentic self. Societal expectations sometimes have this expectations of you to be a martyr in many situations where you have to sacrifice everything about yourself. Where even the word submit, sometimes people think it's part of being sacrificial, where you're a doormat and you literally give up everything of what you want for yourself, or give up everything that you are, even your opinion, even your ideas, even your own intellect is almost denied of you, just to be acceptable in society, to know that you're the helper, you're a good person, you're, loving person, where it became a confusing requirement or demand. So I had to learn that that's not what sacrifice was, that's not what submission was. And those demands were just unrealistic as well. So part of it was I needed to have a healthy balance of accepting myself as well as loving other people as well. So that conditional love and unconditional love, knowing the difference, but also just knowing that it starts with me. It starts with me, no matter what society puts pressure on me for. Some of the pressures are good, and some of them they're too demanding to a point where I need to set boundaries and filter that through my decision-making process as well. Okay, one of the things that I've tried to break free from certain expectations is knowing my belief and faith in God, knowing that God accepts me and He created me as His daughter, and I'm created in His image. And that in itself is one of the foundational principles that I filter a lot of things by. So I'm a believer, I believe in what the Word of God says. So I'll filter that to say, does this is contrary to what God says about me? Because He says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I'll make an impact in this world. I was created for a reason. So whatever the expectations are, if they're contrary to what I was created to be, then I sift that decision-making process. The other thing is that I've also decided to make decisions, based on principles that are beneficial for me and for others. Before, I used to just make decisions which are beneficial for others and neglect me. And then the last thing is that journaling has been a really powerful tool that has helped me to work through a lot of processes. So my journaling exercises, I end up writing a book, which is called She Keeps Rising, because that came out of my Be Cringe moment, where I really felt like I'd made a decision. I was at the worst, of feeling sorry for myself and feeling ashamed. And in rising up, I had to will myself to get up from there. And part of my outlet was just to write down a lot of my thoughts, my poems, my ideas, my prayers, my cries, my requests. And that came in the form of a book that I wrote, which is called She Keeps Rising. So I'll read a poem from there, which I think depicts a lot of rising from Be Cringe worthy moments into that person that I know that I was created to be, to keep on rising and not allow my shame to keep me down. So there was a person who tried to shame me, and they told me that I was a failure, I wouldn't amount to anything. And this was talking to me in my 40s, right? And I sat with that dark cloud of shame, and I almost embraced it. And then I shook it off and I said, you know what? Yes, I've made a mistake. Yes, I didn't have all my act together in a certain moment, but I cannot allow their words over me to become the thing that defines me. And so part of me taking back my power was saying, I fully accept my mistakes. I fully accept the messiness of my decision making, and who hasn't made mistakes? But still in learning that journey of full acceptance of my mistakes, it was also making sure that I accepted me and not define me out of the lens of my failure. I said to myself, Rebecca, you're going to be just fine. You've made it this far in life, and you learn from your mistake. And I love the quote by Maya Angelou, which says that when you know better, you do better. So I just took that on and ran with that. And I remember my son talking to me, and we're having a conversation, and he said, Mom, you've always found a way to pick yourself up, and you've risen up with guns blazing and unstoppable like a phoenix rising. And it was beautiful to see that from the lens of my son, because part of my self-acceptance was also knowing who's watching me. So as I'm going through life, I remember who's watching, who's learning from my journey, who's being helped by my journey and my story, and just accepting flaws and all, and just saying I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. So when it comes to my personal growth journey, I have found that it's been a hard journey because I've gone through trials and challenges. And I think when you hear other people's stories, you find that many people have suffered a lot of challenges as well. But knowing that I needed to own mine for myself, and part of it was to say, what lesson is in this pain? What lesson and what purpose is in this journey and in this experience? And with God, every experience will never be put to waste. Every experience. So even if it was meant to harm you, I've literally said to myself, if God will cause all things to work together for good, I'm determined to learn the lesson from it. So part of my personal growth and my personal development has been in that lifelong learning journey where I said, I'm going to learn from every experience, from every season, from every person, from every book that I can read. So, and I've seen that can look back to a lot of instances where I can see the growth, I can see the progress. And one of the principles that I've personally applied for myself has been, number one, having a vision of who that aspired person that looks healed, that looks, as a person that's healthier. What does she look like? And I aspire for that. And then the other thing is I always aspire for impact, to say whatever lesson I'm learning, I need to leave a positive impact in my life and others around me. And then the third one is really about progress. It's like, am I progressing? Yes, someone did do me wrong. Yes, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to sit in that cul-de-sac and lock myself in that prison. I have to progress from that moment of, falling down, getting back up, dusting myself off and moving on, so that I can look back every month, every year, every quarter, every week, every day, and know that I'm not the same that I used to be. So part of my personal development is really rooted on those principles, and I'm always open and always hungry to continue to learn and improve myself. And I can be a better conduit of blessings for the world and for those around me, so that I can leave a lasting impact. I never realized that every experience that I was going through in life, especially the moments where I would cry to God and say, God, if you knew things were not going to work out, why did you let me go this far? If you knew, if I only had known it was going to end up messy like this, I wish I would have avoided the path. But life is a complex journey. And in my crying, I realized that there were many women that also went through almost similar instances, not this identical, but similar. And they would call on me for advice, or someone would tell them to talk to me for support or mentorship or coaching. And I found that my story actually had a meaning to it. And part of embracing yourself from a low self-esteem position to a position of empowerment, of strength, and of confidence, it's not an easy journey. And I think I've been able to be more empathetic in the journeys of others, because before I think I had a cookie cutter approach, to solving problems. But once you go through certain situations, you're able to understand what someone is going through and speak from a place of love, and where it's not condemnation, but also with power. So instead of just focusing on just love without power, but having both love and power, and that comes with facts as well as the heart. And I strongly believe that I'm in the heart work because I do facilitation and training, and I really feel that I'm fully utilizing the gifts and talents that God has given me. And in so doing I want to speak life over an individual. So the women that I would talk to, I would remind them that they are unique, and no one is perfect, but they too can rise from the ashes, and beauty will come from there. But no one has got the answer to everything as to why bad things happen. But I think once we embrace the fact that behind that challenge, there's going to be a brighter day. Behind that challenge, more lives will be impacted in a positive way. I think then it'll help everyone to just find confidence in knowing that their voice matters, their purpose matters, their story matters, because you just never know who you're going to impact and touch. And so, yeah, that's my message to women out there. It's just like, you know what? You can rise again from any bottomless pit of despair or pain or heartache or disappointment, and you can come out more than enough, more than strong and worthy of your story and the purpose that you're called for. So as I mentioned that I wrote a book, She Keeps Rising. It's a book with poetry plus also a journaling exercise where you can reflect on your life. And part of my journey was from cringe-worthy moments, and the poem that I wrote was Unrecognizable. And part of it is, I'm going to just read a paragraph from it, which is speaking really about how your old self can become unrecognizable to your new self, and hopefully your new self will become unrecognizable to your old self. Unrecognizable, unrecognizable. Looking in the mirror, tears blur the reflection. She takes ownership of her part in colluding with their story of her. Regrettably, her own passivity and negativity added to the damage, leaving her unrecognizable. As she masters courage and grit, wiping the tears from her face, she vows to relentlessly restore her dignity, to fiercely love, forgive herself and them, to rebuild, to morph, and to heal, choosing the path of becoming. Becoming valued unconditionally, becoming radiant unapologetically, becoming visible undeniably, boldly moving forward, the new and the old stories unrecognizable to one another. Unrecognizable. And the journaling reflective question goes to say, have you ever lost yourself in a relationship? How do you wish you had handled it? So here's to your journey of being cringe and being unrecognizable.